Hi, welcome to Basic Biology, and today we're going to talk about intelligence. What it is, why it exists, and the biological view of why some people are more intelligent than others. Intelligence is a very misinterpreted, vaguely comprehended topic. If you ask people on the street to explain to you what they think intelligence is, you might get answers like, I think everyone has their own gifts, or I don't know, how good you are at math, ranging to intelligence is probably just a person's IQ. The point is, many people really don't know what intelligence is and how to properly define it. But for today's purposes, we're going to define intelligence as the ability to gain knowledge and apply it to all life situations. But what makes the lump of cells inside your skull better at gaining knowledge and learning? Well, that's what we're about to find out. But before we can understand what science believes to be the characteristic of intelligent people, we must first take a look into the human brain. And so, here I'm going to draw you a diagram of the human brain, and so just kind of outline it there. Let's just say that's your human brain, and you got little lumps and divots all over it. And so, let's say this is the side view of the brain, so it's been cut in half and you're looking inside it right now. And so what you'd find is that on the outer layer, surrounding the entire brain, is something called gray matter. And that's what has all your neurons, but we're going to talk about that later. So around the brainstem, so what goes from your brain down into your spine and transmits lots of information throughout your body. Just above that, you have something called your hippocampus. And so what that does, it's basically your center for memory. And so the hippocampus right here, lots of people used to think the more you knew, the smarter you were. That's something that a lot of people thought up until recently when we realized that knowledge can just be gained by anyone in memorizing. And so that's what people used to think was a good indicator of your intelligence, was how well you can memorize things and know things. But that was just the hippocampus. But now, what people think is the gray matter that contains all your neurons is actually the most important part of how intelligent you are. And so, here we're going to talk about some theories surrounding intelligence and the physical properties of the brain. So one theory that, on top of the first theory that has been debunked is, over here, one is memory. And we just talked about that. It's been debunked because, well, a lot of people can have a memory, and they have good memories. But what really separates us from other animals who have similar memories is how well we can understand things. And so this is debunked. And so the second idea that people have come up with is the amount of gray matter in your brain or the amount of neurons in your brain, because gray matter and the amount of neurons you have are directly related. And that's because your neurons are all in this gray matter here. And so the second theory that people have come up with is the number of neurons. And so, basically they think this because neurons, when you have a lot of them, you're able to understand and gain knowledge faster, because what happens when you gain a skill or you understand something is a pathway of these neurons in your brain. They all connect in a certain way. And so then you have those neurons that connect, and then now you understand a topic. And so the more neurons you have, then it makes sense that the more topics you should be able to understand. But the problem with that theory, and why it's now been debunked as well, is because lots of other animals also have lots of neurons like us. And so we know that we're the most intelligent animals on Earth, so this can't be true. And so the third was that it's a combination of this one, so your number of neurons, and the speed at which, we'll draw that later, the speed at which these neurons are able to make new patterns and form new structures so that you can understand things. And so what that's called is intracortical information processing speed. And so that's just basically a complex way of stating that inside your cortex, which is this little outline of your brain here, it's your speed at which your information processing, or the speed at which your neurons make new structures, happens. And so it's number 2, the number of neurons you have, and the intracortical velocity, we'll say. And so this, the most recent, is the most recent idea of what makes an animal or a person or anything more intelligent than one another. And so that's going to be our definition of what physical characteristic we think intelligence is in humans as of now. And so one thing that you may have heard is actually that Einstein had a lot more gray matter than a lot of people. And so when they studied Einstein's brain after he died, he gave them permission to do that. And so they studied the amount of gray matter that he had, and he had a lot more than was commonly known. And so that's part of this, so that helps us understand. And that's just a little extra information that may help you understand this a little further. And so the conclusion is that intelligence, the physical characteristic of it, is the combination of the speed that neurons transmit information and form new structures within the brain, and the amount of neurons that you have. And so overall, that is what makes a person more intelligent or not.